Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize numbers.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suchedoye olahadi samya sanpatoshe.
Namo sadanto suchedoye halahadi samya sambuddhoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master, Dharma friends, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Hung Shur. Today is Sunday, February 14th here in Australia, Saturday, February 13th back in the US and around the world. We're going to be looking into the Flower Garland Sutra. I'm very happy to be with you today. And I very much appreciate last week under emergency situations, both Dharma masters, the monks at the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery stepped up to turn the Dharma wheel for everyone and explain some very interesting principles that I think are super relevant to our world at the moment. So this week I'm back. I'm missing a tooth, but happy to be, how many grams lighter? I don't know, per tooth, but feeling much lighter. And cracked a tooth on a nutshell, unaware. And the only thing to do is to remove the tooth. So you get that funny feeling with your tongue, where there's a gap, but it certainly is a good reminder of the fragility of the body and how much that this thing is a gadget, right? It's put together, the glue of karma binding together earth, air, fire, and water temporarily. And when we chew on food, we don't ordinarily thank our teeth. But my goodness, remember the old Jewish lady who said to her grandchildren, "Be grateful, you have teeth," and they're like, "Grandma," she knows what she's talking about. So I'm grateful to have teeth and soft food to eat on one side, but doesn't obstruct my ability to explain the Flower Garland Sutra for you all today. So double layers of gratitude. Let's get started with our, see here. Looking for, there we go. That's the one we want. Oh, no, Maitreya, he comes up later. I'm looking, there we are. We're looking for our text here. When we're back, we're going to be on page 76, but we're going to venture up to the top of our document to get the text that we're going to chant first. We begin our sutra lecture every week with an invocation. We're asking that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the Flower Garland Sutra, and the Dharma protectors and all those spiritual beings who love to hear the Buddha's wisdom will draw near this place here in Queensland, Australia, but also wherever you are listening with a sincere heart to the Buddha's Flower Garland Sutra. So what we do is we put our palms together and chant in Chinese. We'll have an English version one of these days. Having a banjo to back it up is kind of the first step in that direction, isn't it? But we chant in Chinese, Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pusa, and it goes like this. Ready? Here we go. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Namo Da Fang Hua Yan Jing Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pusa. I might also mention that before we start that, back to page 76 here, let's find our way. There we go. That today, in terms of calendar, is a multitude of events today. It is, here in Australia, Valentine's Day, which doesn't seem to be as big a day as I remember back in the States when you had to, especially in grade school, you had to stick those, remember those candy hearts with a "Be Mine" on it, you know? You had to come up with a hand-pasted Valentine for your mom. Remember the glitter and this, yeah, that was important back then. Mom, it meant a lot to her, I remember. And to your sweetie and all. Today is also 2 days after Lunar New Year's. So I could have started today's lecture with all of the appropriate lucky talk that monks are supposed to come up with, and I didn't. Number one, we're 2 days past, but it is Lunar New Year's. And so the monk is supposed to say things like, 大自在, 大吉祥, 新春吉祥, 万事如意, things like that. And I don't want to sound insincere. I mean that. May this year, the year of the golden ox, be all the things I said in Chinese, which is, may it be lucky for you. May it be an auspicious year, and 事事如意. May everything you do come about the way you would have it, as long as that's a wholesome wish, right? If your wish is to stage an insurrection at the Capitol, then may that wish not come about successfully. So, but the new year is a time of renewal when in the Chinese world, my goodness, I've been privileged to watch New Year's come around, the Lunar New Year's in a Chinese community. Remember in '89, I was in Taiwan, and it means so much to everyone that you pay off all your debts. You don't let debts go into the next year, right? You get new clothes. You're all ready to renew and start again. And grandparents go to the bank and get crisp new dollar bills to put in fresh red hongbao, red packets, and then hand them out to the grandkids. Grandkids make out like bandits on Lunar New Year's. And they just, the bigger the family, the more the grandparents delight in making sure nobody's left out with handing them fresh new money. And moms have a pretty good deal around New Year's because all the food has been cooked already. They get to enjoy. There's no cooking going on in New Year's. Kind of like Sabbath in the Jewish tradition. But the cooking is done beforehand, so you can really, really rest. And every day has a special event. You go to the temple on the first day. You go to your spouse's in-laws on the next day, and then you have special foods and drinks and dances and customs that you do for the rest of the every day. So big deal. It's an important holiday. We don't quite in the Western world have anything to match New Year's, Guo Nian. In the Vietnamese world, it's called Tet, right? T-E-T, Tet. And same idea of the old is over, the new is infinite possibility. So Happy New Year, everybody. So that's the second calendar event that we're aware of today. But the third one is the one we're going to talk about after we look at the sutra, which is Maitreya Bodhisattva's special day. Happens right on New Year's every year. And Maitreya, I'll wait till we get to the sutra, but Maitreya, Mila Pusa, Mila Fo, Maitreya Bodhisattva is among the least appreciated and yet one of the most important of the bodhisattvas in the Mahayana pantheon. So we'll talk about him coming up because his birthday every year is Lunar New Year's. So, okay, here's our sutra text for today. We're on page 76, and I'll first go through the Chinese. It's a long section, and then come back and do the English equivalent. Okay, are we ready? Here, I'll put my palms together. Here we go. 佛子当知菩萨亦复如是，有10种事，处过众生。何等为10？一者发一切智心，二者持戒偷脱，正性明净，三者诸禅三昧圆满无缺，四者道行清白，理诸垢秽，五者方便神通，内外明彻，六者缘起智慧，善能钻穿，七者观意种种方便之驴，八者执欲自在高窗之上，九者观众生横放温持光，十者爱佛智藏。I'm sorry, 受佛智智. There we go. Thank you. 受佛智智，堕在佛树，能为众生广做佛事. Long section in Chinese. Here's the English. Disciples of the Buddha, be aware that the Bodhisattva similarly encounters 10 circumstances where he surpasses the multitudes of sages. What are those 10? 1, he brings forth the resolve for omniscience. 2, his upright practices, precept discipline, and cultivation of asceticism are bright and exemplary. 3, his practice of meditative samadhi is complete and flawless. I'm going to swap pronouns here. 4, her pursuit of the way is pristine and free from defilement. 5, her expedient spiritual abilities are transparent inside and out. 6, her wisdom concerning conditioned arising skillfully threads through. 7, his teachings are strung together with threads of wise, expedient means. 8, he is elevated on a lofty banner of sovereignty. 9, contemplating the behavior of sentient beings, she sends forth radiance of learning and sustaining. 10, She's appointed to the Buddha's role and is numbered among the Buddhas and can do the deeds that Buddhas do for sentient beings on a vast scale. Okay, so the swapping of pronouns is intentional so that we understand that this text is gender neutral. It's not the case that bodhisattvas are bound into a single body. They can take alternate shapes and forms to pursue their vows, to help teach us. Okay. You notice there were 10 things. That's a lot, right? A list of 10 is, most of us zone out by 4 or 5. That's the Avatamsaka. There are 10s. It's the teaching of totality, round and full, right? Nothing missing. So we get 10 circumstances where the Bodhisattva surpasses multitudes of sages. What's that about? That's to say, this is the 10th stage out of 10. Our 10th stage Bodhisattva is the best of his kind, her kind. Who says? Well, we've been looking at this chapter for years now. It's a long one. And step by step by step by step up the ladder, what's been going on is the Bodhisattva has been what do they say? Qin xiu jie ding hui, xi mie tan shen shi, right? Diligently cultivating precepts, samadhi, and wisdom, and putting to rest greed, anger, and delusion. That's formula talk, isn't it? That's Buddhist code language. What does it mean? It means that as a bodhisattva, what he's been doing, what she's been doing is becoming a better person, meditating successfully, and then bringing out from what's revealed through the meditation, this inherent wisdom, the innate ability to connect specific and principle. When an acorn falls, he goes, oak tree, down to the root. When he sees the seed in an apple, he goes, okay, all the way to apple tree bearing apples with seeds in them, right? Makes that loop. So looks at his own bad habits and goes, that was either caused by greed, anger, or delusion, maybe pride, maybe doubt. The more I can reduce those, the more I can get a handle on my bad habits. That's the wisdom part. So character, concentration, and insight into habits and behavior. So that's what he's been doing bit by bit by bit, using the methods of the 10 stages. And now there's not much darkness. There's not much confusion left. This bodhisattva's inside is clean, clear, bright, right? And that's when I feel I'm doing my job with this sutra, every time I can take a piece of text and put it back into my experience. That's I think what Master Hua, what Shifu had in mind for us. Ditto the Buddha. I think that's why the Buddha explained the sutras, not so that we can look out at it as philosophy and go, oh, that's really lofty, that's really deep. Right? No, it's like, this is how you do it. This is a manual. It's a how-to. Should you want to do it? Should you want to follow the Bodhisattva path and do what the Buddha did when he was on the path, became the Buddha when he succeeded, is to transform the darkness inside, bring it to light, and what we discover. And the sutra is about what you discover when you do that, right? Okay, so here's our 10th stage Bodhisattva. He surpasses the multitude of sages. He's done that work. There's very little darkness left. And there are 10 circumstances where he goes beyond. Okay, step back. 2 weeks ago, we talked about mani pearls. Remember mani pearls, mani gems, moni bao zhu, moni zhu in Chinese? We gave you photos or images, that is to say, artistic representations of what a mani pearl, remember Earthstore Bodhisattva holding that? And we talked about dragons, lots of dragons last 2 weeks ago, how the dragons are like fixated on their pearls, and how the dragon maiden Long Nu, how she got predicted to Buddhahood because she could let her pearl go. Most valuable thing to a dragon, she was able to say, no, I'm after wisdom. And the Buddha said, just by that ability to renounce, she goes beyond you, Venerable Shariputra, and all those arhats who are still clinging to that much self, right? Wow, that was a big deal. So that was Mani pearls. And the text gave us 10 ways that Mani pearls are, Mani jewels are splendid and special. This week, we get the second half of the analogy where Vajra Treasury, our lecturer, says, likewise, in similar ways, your Bodhisattva is supreme, is wonderful. So that's where we are. So what does he do first? How is he better than all the other sages? He fa yi che zhi xin. From his mind, from her mind, the Bodhisattva says, I want to be wise. My priority is wisdom. That's the most important thing. Not wealth, not power, not re-election, not property and cool stuff. All those things are okay, nothing wrong. There's no judgment here. It's that for me, however, all those things come and go. Wisdom is mine when I uncover it, discover it in my own nature. So that's the resolve for Bodhi. Facing all those options, given everything I could be, that's what I want. This gets personal when I show up in China. We had the fifth or sixth World Buddhist Forum in Putian a few years back, Fujian. And there were, 6,000, 7,000 Buddhists under one roof. So many of them were monks. And of those, many, many thousand Buddhists, I think there were maybe 2 or 3 with blue eyes. I was one of them. Everybody else was Asian. And so I thought, because I've been around as a monk for 45 years, I thought that I'd answer this question, but I was shocked to have people come up to me and say, wow, how come you, a Westerner, could have done anything else? Why did you want to be a monk? What's wrong with you? You could have been rich, I'm like, yeah, it's all true. But, the Dharma has put down roots in America, and there are lots of people with blue eyes, that is to say, non-Asian ethnic heritage, who likewise have said, I want to bring forth the resolve for omniscience. I want to fa yi che zhi xin. That's most important. Stuff comes and goes, even money. Doesn't last, right? Not a penny goes with you past the grave. So what's important? What does? And we're looking to the Buddha for the answer to that question. We're looking to our founder and our role model, Master Hsuan, for the answer. So, and ultimately you have to find it yourself. That's very democratic. It's very, rugged individual. You have to bring it forth yourself. You can be inspired by others, but the work has to come from you. If you don't spend many hours at the keyboard, when you sit down and play the piano, it won't sound like much. But if you do the work, it will sound beautiful, right? So that's very Western minded, kind of democratic, right? Very, I need to be careful. We're currently in the United States, there's a lot of politics in the air, and I need to make sure that my focus is on the sutra. So I have to discipline myself. Okay. The Bodhi resolve. What am I capable of? Wisdom. I want it. I want to go there. Right? So number 2, look at this one. This is interesting. The second place where the 10-stage bodhisattva goes beyond the other sages is, Chinese says, 持戒偷陀正性明净正横明净正行明净. What is it? Upright practices, precept discipline, and cultivation of asceticism are bright and exemplary. That sounds like code language, doesn't it? To have a bright, upright practice. Yeah, translate that, please. So, precept discipline. What does it mean? It means that this bodhisattva was willing in his or her formative years to adopt practices that were physically not comfortable, but were spiritually liberating. What are they? Buddhism has, and this is interesting because Master Hua, our founder, was known in his Chinese Buddhist world of the 20th century and then on into the 21st century as an ascetic monk, as a monk who could practice kuxing, vigorous practice. They're called bitter practices, right? But bitter to the tongue, sweet to the mind. And another way to say it is disciplined mind, sweet practice. What does that mean? It means, the best example I can give, first of all, let me identify what we're talking about. In Buddhism contains a list of 13 what are called Dhutanga, Sanskrit word, toto, means exhilarating, right? Whipping in, also known as kind of bringing forth energy, energizing. There you go. That's the word. Energizing practices, such as they focus around food, clothing, and sleep, physical comfort. Interesting, right? There's another one that has to do with money, but we'll get to that. So food, clothes, and sleep. What is comfortable is you say, whatever. How many meals did you eat today? When I was hungry. Did you, how long did you sleep last night? Well, I got up when I wanted to, and what are you wearing? Well, anything, that's comfortable in the world, but it has nothing to do, it's the opposite of discipline. So the idea is, if you think, I'll give you my example now. So those are the 13 Dhutanga practices. They involve paying attention to what you put in your body, paying attention to what you put on your body, and paying attention to how you comfort your body, right? How you ease discomfort, for example. And I might add that we have a saying that we don't mortify the flesh in Buddhism, we mortify the mind. The mind that reaches out for the whatever, Instead, we say, no, let's do it this way. Let's give it some form. Let's invigorate it. Let's put it closer to the edge, right? Why? Oh, those monks, they're just all suffering all the time, right? No, it's not that way at all. It's that when I can bring my daily habits closer to an edge where I can see the limit of food, when I can see what time I'm going to be up because there's a ceremony, when I can see wearing the same old, this robe is 10 years old. When I can see that, strangely, it's invigorating, it's liberating. Excess brings dullness and no invigoration, fuzziness, strangely, right? When you have too much, you lose that sense of being alive in your body. That may sound counterintuitive. In fact, it is not. So here's my best example of that. When I understood the value of upright practice, precept, discipline, and cultivation of asceticism, when I was bowing on a pilgrimage up the Pacific Coast Highway, the PCH, Highway 1, along the California coast. And what grows on the California coast is brambleberries, berry brambles. What kind of berries? Like blackberries, mulberries. In Oregon, you get loganberries, but they're blackberries. Let's use those. Raspberries also. Okay. They grow wild. And they're particularly on the side between the highway and the ocean, because the beach is, for hundreds of miles along the Pacific Coast Highway, is right there. You're driving alongside the shore, right? And in that little strip between the sand and the highway, there are often many, 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 many places these brambles. What's a bramble? A bramble is when a vine grows up and is not disciplined at all, right? The vines just grow a tangle. Small birds can fly through it. Large birds get stuck in the thorns, right? Or the berries. Rabbits can go underneath, and brambles are great refuges for rabbits because their fur is soft and they can squeeze in through the brambles, and foxes can't go, dogs can't go. It's just too impenetrable. People cannot walk through a berry bramble. You get stuck solid. Forget it, right? You have to get out your heavy hedge trimmers and cut your way out. Okay, many, many miles of the coastside road full of berry brambles. They're an impenetrable thorn of hedges, hedge of thorns. There you go, hedge of thorns. In several places, bowing along, we came by a house when the road was wide enough there, the shoulder was wide enough. And the house contained a skillful gardener who did what? Built a trellis. You know what a trellis is, right? It's a framework of vertical and then horizontal slats that goes high, sometimes arched over to make a gate or a fence. And then a skillful gardener took the very same roots of the bramble and guided them up to the trellis, and then cut away half, even 2/3 of the vines. So what was originally 10 vines, he cut back to 3 and trained them up high. And when you look at the bramble at certain times of the year, the summer, high summer usually, what do you see? You see green berries. They're not ripe, they're small, because they're competing for the sunlight and the nutrition with all the other vines. So the berries that come out of a bramble are not good to eat. They're not good to make jam out of or juice. You just can't, right? When the skillful gardener trained and disciplined the berry vines to go over the trellis, oh my goodness, identical vines now produce this big, luscious, sweet fruit of berries, mulberries, raspberries, blackberries. Same vines, but disciplined and cut back. And now the berries are perfectly edible. They benefit the next winter because you collected them and turned them into jam and you turn them into berry pancakes and berry muffins, right? The difference was the discipline and the shaping that the skillful gardener gave them. In the very same way, and here's my analogy, right? In the very same way, precepts take our lives, which if we're whatever, in clothes, food, and sleep, right? In habits, consumption, and appetite, if we can take the precepts and in a wholesome way say, yeah, I commit to not killing, not stealing, not lusting, not lying, not drugging or intoxicating. Furthermore, I understand that enough is graceful. Too much is graceless. Just enough to keep me going. Give the rest away to people who have none, right? That is the discipline that our Bodhisattva practices. And the result in a human life is the fruition of character, generosity, gratitude, patience, ultimately compassion and wisdom, right? Just like those berries, cut off 2/3 of them, and the ones that you get are brilliantly useful. And you keep them, they keep producing fruit year after year, right? If you just let them grow into a bramble, it's a no man's, no woman's land, right? Only rabbits and little birds. So you get the point. That was I said, I actually think I understand the value of precepts and asceticism when I saw the skillful gardener with his blackberries. So yeah, his upright practices, precept, discipline, and cultivation of asceticism are bright and exemplary. It is not painful suffering for its own sake. That's the point of cultivation, is not to increase suffering. The point of cultivation is to learn how to transform suffering. And often what the world tells us, the marketplace tells us, more is best, right? The most is best. He who dies with the most toys is the winner. Cultivation says that's a misconception. That's not freedom. That's a dulling of life. You never get that sense of looking at the night sky on a clear, cloudless night. I listened the other day to a new guitar composition written by, is it Richard Carlton, an Australian composer who went out to Uluru, to used to be called Ayers Rock, the red heart of Australia, looked up at the sky and composed a brilliant piece for the guitarist Stephanie Jones, this young Australian guitarist who's inspired him to compose this piece. And having been myself to Uluru, that's the indigenous name for what used to be called Ayers Rock. It's for indigenous communities in Australia, it's their spiritual refuge. Place is very important. And Mr. Carlton wrote this beautiful, beautiful 7 or 8 minute. It's not a symphony, it's not a concerto, it's a composition, bringing the stars to life through nylon string, classical guitar composition. Brilliant. And it's that feeling when you can take the courageous step to say, I want to reduce my share and give the rest away, and find out what is enough. How much is just enough? The joy of the word is sufficiency. It's not tight-lipped kind of pursed expression, kind of frowning kind of negation, right? That's a misunderstanding, that asceticism is somehow spirit denying. It's not. It's the experience of it is the opposite. So anybody who's ever tried fasting for health knows that feeling. It's like there's a feeling of lightness and connection with life around you, right? It's just greed and discovering for yourself how much I really need. What's the difference? So our Bodhisattva is very much in that, has that experience, right? Counterintuitive, that saying no is actually liberating, and asking myself, what's the difference between need and greed? Number 3, 诸禅三昧圆满无缺. His practice of meditative samadhi is complete and flawless. Yep, good meditator. This Bodhisattva's been meditating to the point where he's not meditating. I'm sorry, say it again. He's never not meditating. Some people ask, if I do like long distance running, long distance cycling, if I swim until I get in the zone, is that samadhi? That would be a fascinating place for us to apply our new tools of brain research to our investigation of sports medicine. Here at the Gold Coast, Bond University has a flourishing department of sports medicine because why? We are arguably the surfing capital of the world, certainly one of them, if not the capital. And our local university has made the most of that and is investigating all the not only what happens to surfing and safety and the physiological aspects of it, but also other sports as well. Using those tools of research to ask, what is the zone? How do you get in the zone? What is going on? Do you forget the self? Do you go beyond boundaries? What's going on with the buildup of calcium and acids in the blood and the muscles, and when you quote hit the wall, and go past that. Ben, do you ever get out there sailing and enter samadhi, a sailing samadhi? Is that?
We do an archery.
An archery. Yeah. There we go. So, what is it about? Remember the German? What was his name? The Zen of archery, Eugen Herrigel, right? Eugen Herrigel. One of the available Buddhist books when I was first poking around in Buddhist literature was Zen and the Art of Archery. Then it became Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, Robert Persick, yeah. But Eugen Herrigel. Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, you bet, yeah. The Swiss writer, compiler. So Eugen Herrigel, later controversial gentleman, was the first one to publish in English about this thing called Zen archery, which is a very real discipline. We have some young men who are accomplished in it now here in Australia. And it involves being able to follow a Dharma, a method, a technology, whereby you and your bow and the arrow and the elements, the air that the arrow passes through become one. And the most famous example of it is, who is the teacher who in full darkness?
He's the head honcho in Japan, the highest level.
The highest level of Zen archery in Japan, in a dark room, right? No lights. This has been caught on camera. He takes his arrow, draws his bow, and into the bullseye, time and time again, not just once. But yeah. And so what's going on there? When in the dark, you don't miss. You go, wait a minute. Yeah, that's some sort of, is it magic? It's physics. It's a skill. It's kung fu. There's the name of kung fu right there. So his practice of meditative samadhi is complete and flawless. What's that about, right? How is that possible? Well, the answer is investigate, look into it. In the third stage, we're on stage 10, we talked about psychic powers that are, let's see here. We're in number 5 already. I'll wait till I get to number 5 before I talk about that. So meditation can bring one to these states. Is, quote, the zone that one can get in without having done a minute of meditation, but pursued other things, running, swimming, sitting at the piano keyboard for hours and hours, sitting with one's cello for hours and hours. What kind of state does that produce, and how does it correspond to Buddhist meditation? Good question. You remember my story, Professor Lancaster's favorite illustration of what's possible? When I was a brand new graduate student at Berkeley, Professor Lancaster told this story, and we were like, Gee whiz, right? There they take three kinds of meditators. One, a non-meditator. Two, a yogi using hatha yoga and various kinds of yoga. And three, a Buddhist Chan, a Zen meditator. And beside their ear, they went clack, 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 with some wooden clackers. The non-meditators, EKG, right, the electrical pulses in the brain, went dook, 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 flat. They blocked it out. They didn't hear it anymore, right? That was the non-meditator. After a while, it just became, I'm not going to listen. You know, somebody who lives next to a train track, they don't hear the train. Somebody whose house is next to the fish market, they don't smell the fish after a while, right? That was the non-meditator. The yogi meditator, clack, 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 clack. What happens? Flatline. They can hold their senses back, right? There's strength. They're concentrating and able to not hear it. So they're able to be in the world, but out of the world. Okay. The Zen meditator, the Chan meditator, clack, 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 clack. What's it like? The EKG goes using beginner's mind. They say every clack is fresh. Every clack is new. They're totally alert, totally awake, not blocking it out, you know, over time, getting tired of it and ignoring it, not with strength, but awake and alive and present to every sound and every silence between every sound, right? Hearing all of it. That's the Zen goal. So Professor Lancaster told that story and we're like, wow, yeah, that's what I want. I want to be so present. I don't block anything. I'm totally in touch. That's the kind of consciousness I'm aiming for. So our practice of meditative samadhi, complete and flawless. 4, pursuit of the way. 4 is what? 道行清白理主勾会. So you could say that free from defilement. In this sense, this is not talking about, you know, dirt or dirty or somehow obscene. It's not that. Defilement here, from the meditator's point of view, is thinking. Thinking. If you want to come crashing out of the zone, have a thought. What is the zone? Is, you know, let's say you've been doing laps around the back and forth and in your lane in the pool for half an hour. As soon as you think, gee, I wonder if I forgot to turn the stove off. And suddenly you're like, oh boy, this is like the pressure. I'm really tired now, you know. Just defilement here is the Tao. What is the Tao? The pursuit of the Tao. What was it? It was Dao Heng, Qingbai. In pursuit of the Tao. The Tao is the way things are without words and thought, without random reflection. Okay, so for example, suppose we used our minds the same way we used our eyes. How do the eyes work? I saw that. Registered consciousness, right? Object hits organ, consciousness notices. I don't look at it and have to look at it again to make sure I saw it, unless it was moving or hidden or something. But we don't look twice to justify, to verify, you know, see it once, you saw it. Did you see it? Yes. Did you see it? No, I didn't see it. It was dark. Okay. Turn the lights on. I saw it. You don't have to do it twice. Why do we think and then react to the thought and then evaluate the reaction and then feel bad about the reaction that we had and then apologize for the reaction and then realize that was the inappropriate thing to do? And if we could use our minds the way we use our ears, you hear it, heard it, right? We would be closer to the Tao. But being people who are rewarded for our head heaviness, right? We tie ourselves in knots because of our thoughts. Out of the 6 sense organs, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, the mind is the one that gets us in trouble over and over, right? And we become our own defense lawyers and in there rationalizing. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to talk about politics. I'm not. Okay. Expedient spiritual abilities, transparent inside and out. The Bodhisattva can, at the third stage, here it's number 5, and that's, notice, by the way, people who are keeping track, that these 10 are still tracking with the 10 stages and the 10 paramitas. 3 weeks ago, we showed that correspondence. We won't go into that again. That's a kind of a meta discussion here. But Bodhisattva's psychic powers, what does it say? 无者, 方便神通内外明彻. At the 10th stage here, our Bodhisattva is, boy, oh boy, this Bodhisattva can do things science can't explain. And it's totally within each of our minds and our natures to be able to do it. But this Bodhisattva has learned how. And he does it in order to teach, in order to accord with living beings, so that we wake up, transparent inside and out. So when you hear anybody saying, oh, you know, so-and-so's got his tianyan, his deva eye open, they can tell your past and your future, be cautious. It's not, I won't say it's impossible. I'll say if they tell you, chances are there's a motive for it. You're about to be manipulated one way or the other, often for money, right, or favors. Okay. Number 6, wisdom concerning conditioned arising skillfully threads through. Okay, 6者缘起智慧善能钻穿. Remember we talked about Mani, the Mani pearl was often used as a bead with a string through it. That was in the analogies. So here, the Bodhisattva's wisdom regarding where things come from skillfully threads through. I've said before that our 6th stage, we're on 10 now, 6th stage had to do with 12 因缘, the 12 links, which are the Buddha's story of creation. All right, you've been listening to me talk now for a very long time without a break. Just listen to how sweet that silence is, right? He's not talking now. So what I want to do, I want to exercise the other side of your brain. And my friend Amy White lives on a mountaintop in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Western North Carolina. And Amy, through no design of hers, but just through happenstance, became a trail cam maven. Amy started putting out trail cameras on the trails around her house. She and her husband Al Petaway live on this at 5,000 feet, 4,000 feet up high. And they have incredible wildlife around them. We consider ourselves lucky here in the Gold Coast, in the hinterlands, because we've got some of the most spectacular bird life in the world, and little marsupials of all kinds. Also lots of snakes and lots of insects and all. But what we don't have in Australia, Australia has no lions and tigers and bears, apex predator types. We've got dingoes. Dingoes they're Canis lupus, Canis dingo. They're dog-like, wolf-like, but they're their own species. And dingoes are warm and fuzzy when you give them a chance. Much maligned and quite uniquely wonderful in Australia. But we don't have black bears. We don't have coyotes, right? We don't have wildcats. And Amy White up in Western North Carolina has all of them. And she catches them on camera. And with a great sense of humor and a lot of just love for these wonderful creatures that are there in the woods, North Carolina, she brings these videos out. And just to break up the sound of my voice, lecturing on the text, I want to share with you Ernie the bear and his rubber ducky. It's priceless. You won't, it's one of those, am I seeing what I'm seeing? So there are around Amy and Al and Amy's house there, they've had generations of black bears. And they've had a baby bear who lost his mom, who they watched grow to maturity, and everybody was like, oh, you know. And they've had a wonderful mom. I think her name was Bertha, and then he has two babies who she raised, both of them named Daryl, and the two Daryls. And we watched them grow up and play on the hammock and play on the trellis and on the love seat. And there's also a male who's a very handsome male who showed up, and his name is Ernie. So Amy, her goal was to watch a bear get in a bathtub with a rubber ducky, and her wish came true a month or two ago. Here it is, just briefly. This is 4 minutes, and I guarantee it'll wash clean every thought of the Avatamsaka Sutra. So when we're back, it's fresh. You guys are free to come look. Priceless. There's Ernie in the bathtub. You've seen it. Here we are. Ernie in the bathtub, and he's got his rubber ducky, which he loves, just like any kid. And he plays with it, like any kid would. Probably you've never seen a black bear in a bathtub with a rubber ducky. Oh my goodness. It's just special. Here it comes. There it is. And he's got it. Oh, you dropped it, Ernie. So the bathwater is brown now. It was clean when he got in. Dirty bear. Here's a second world problem: how to get your rubber ducky back in your bathtub. Yeah. Oh well. There we go. What a good-looking guy. Sitting up so proud of him. There he is. Life is good. No. Do that one next week. Okay, there we go. Ernie the bear. Thank you, Amy. Go out to YouTube, should anybody care to, after this, and look for, here's the logo. Look for Fairview Critter Cams, and you'll see so much more. She has wildcats, bobcats chasing each other. She's got deer in mating season, you know, the bucks running around chasing the girls. And she's got lots and lots of, some of her most deservedly famous ones are, they have a big heavy duty hammock, and the mother bear and her two cubs take turns pulling each other out of the hammock, climbing back in, and then dumping each other. And it's just priceless. So, okay, back to the Avatamsaka. Oh, that's coming up later. Here we go. Okay, number 7 is the Bodhisattva's teachings are strung together with threads of wise, expedient means. 七者贯义种种方便智律. Okay, so wise, expedient means make sense of the teachings. The teachings are all there in reserve. They come forward when needed. If you start with the teachings, but there was no lesson, Nobody remembers, right? But when you bring them forward, talking about, pure precepts, one of my best learnings was one of my earliest ones from Master Hua. I had just taken the Bodhisattva precepts that morning. The 10 major and 48 subsidiary Bodhisattva precepts. I was a layman. I was about to leave home. I had already declared, I was leaving my rooming house in Berkeley. And one of the Bodhisattva precepts says, should one who holds the Bodhisattva precepts pass a glass of wine or alcoholic beverage to someone else, intentionally, for 500 lives, no hands, lose use of his hands, 500 lives. And it was like, whoa. So clearly intoxicants are being made taboo by the Buddha. So in other words, you can't be a bartender. Bodhisattvas can't be bartenders, right? You can't dispense drinks to others. It's going to intentionally get them intoxicated. So that's a subsidiary precept. It's not featured because how many people? You also take, no intoxicants up at the top 5 out of the top 10. Okay. So went off that afternoon. It was November the 3rd, Thursday in November. Went off to my auntie's out of Mona Creek. And what happened? Sat down at the Thanksgiving table, my last Thanksgiving as a layman. And my aunt said to me, Christopher, would you please hand Uncle John his wine? She put it in my hand. And I'm looking at this wine glass. Oh no, 500 lives, no hand. It's like, oh, and I had no choice. I mean, I could have dropped it on the table, and tried to explain what's wrong with Christopher, But there it was, and I handed Uncle John. He says, thanks, totally innocent. I did it. Oh, I did it. So I got, I dragged my butt back across the Bay Bridge to San Francisco and dragged myself into the door of Gold Mountain Monastery. And there was Master Hua, big smile on his face. Tamyanga, your auntie's Thanksgiving. Oh, sure. I took the precepts in the morning and I broke them in the afternoon. So he's looking at me and I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm such a failure. I'm a terrible cultivator. I couldn't even hold them one day, And he said, with real energy, he said, did you kill anyone? No, I didn't kill anyone. Did you steal anything? No, I didn't steal anything. Did you take drugs? I didn't take drugs. Forget it, he said. Walked away. I'm like, he clearly, Master Hua's lesson was, get your priorities straight, And my intention was not to pass alcohol to my uncle. I didn't break a major bodhisattva precept, so forget it, Don't get tripped up in the weeds and miss the forest around you, right? So thank you, Shifu, for setting the priorities. What's important, what's less important. What was important for him was, did I kill anyone? Did I steal anything? Did I take drugs? Forget it, right? So in the pursuit of skillful, precept, discipline, and cultivation of asceticism, upright practices, don't get stuck. Don't stick yourself. Okay. That's what a good and wise advisor is for, is to make it clear where the priorities are. Okay. Number 8, the Bodhisattva is elevated on a lofty banner of sovereignty. Boy, is that Buddhist code or what? 知与自在高床之上. This is referring to the Mani pearl from last week, which is held up high on a banner, it said, so everybody can see it shine. And this was referring to the 8th stage, where the Bodhisattva reached this place of irreversibility, it's called, where you no longer retreat from your practice, from your resolve. Number 9, contemplating the behavior of sentient beings, he sends forth the radiance of learning and sustaining. Okay, 九者观众生恒放温持光. Wisdom of learning and sustaining, talking about the radiance of learning and sustaining, talking about wisdom. Bodhisattva is there to teach. At this point, he is called a Da Fa Shi, the great teacher of Dharma. So whatever works to teach, that's what he does. And then the last one, this was a big deal, I remember, when we got up. I'll read it first. Here we go. Ready? He is appointed to the Buddha's role and is numbered among the Buddhas. He can do the deeds that Buddhas do for sentient beings on a vast scale. 使者受佛智智，堕在佛树，能为众生广作佛事. Okay, this was a big, if you recall, the 10th stage had all kinds of drama in it, including what? Including this called guanding, anointing of the crown, right? Where the Bodhisattva gets promoted to the rank of Buddhahood before he's actually a Buddha. He's still a 10th stage Bodhisattva, but he goes through this ritual. Remember we talked about when I attended the investiture of the auxiliary bishop of San Francisco in the Roman Catholic Church, Father John Wester, at St. Mary's Cathedral, downtown San Francisco, where he got oil dripped on the top of his head by a cardinal. It was quite a scene. And I looked at it, I thought, hey, that's right in the sutras. By golly, look at that. How cool is that? And sure enough, I started looking into it, and here were all these different religions that from the earliest times have a similar ritual of putting water or consecrated oil or wine, special symbolic liquids on the crown of the head of somebody who is going from one stage up to the next. Guanding, it's called. It's, I'm going to say universal, but it's recognized in many, many cultures. This is what you do when somebody has now been consecrated. That's our word, right? Consecrate somebody to a new position. So that's our Bodhisattva, appointed to the Buddha's role, can do the deeds that Buddhas do for sentient beings on a vast scale, but isn't a Buddha yet. Okay. So how neat. 10, we made it all through all 10. Look at that. 10 things whereby our 10th stage Bodhisattva is the superior to other sages. And what's ahead of this Bodhisattva is the work that Buddhas do. So what is today? Today is New Year's. 2 days ago, actually, it was the New Year's season. Year of the Golden Ox, Jin New year. It's supposed to be a good year for hard work and success, accomplishment, steady work at accomplishing challenges. It's also Valentine's Day. Hope you got your Valentines out there. If it's the day before in the US. And it is Maitreya Bodhisattva's birthday. And that's the one I wanted to talk about because he's the least known of the major bodhisattvas and the most important into the future because he's the next Buddha. Maitreya Bodhisattva is misunderstood. I'll say that. People have seen the fat Buddha, right? Every sailor who's ever gotten off a ship in Hong Kong has walked by these stores where you've got the fat Buddha, often with coins, money, or children grabbing his ears and pinching him. And many of them, interestingly, this is a substantial demographic. Those sailors, those merchant seamen, come back from Hong Kong bearing these Buddhas, and they put them on their mother or their spouse's altar. And people look at them and go, oh, Buddha, right? So inadvertently, seagoing citizens of this country have propagated Buddhism on the altars of their spouses and wives and mothers by bringing home the fat Buddha. A lot. Many people go, oh yeah, I grew up with one of those. There was, I think we put it in the bathroom somewhere, it was in the garage. Yeah, it's like, well, rub his belly for luck, And okay, what's funny about that is it's actually only, well, it's in Japan, they call it Budai, Hote. Hote is Japanese pronunciation of Budai, which means what? Hemp bag, cloth bag. Think Santa Claus. What's a cloth bag? There is an image of Maitreya Bodhisattva who carries a cloth bag like Santa Claus carries his pack full of gifts for good little boys and girls, right? Maitreya Bodhisattva has this bag that he carries around, and he looks really heavy. He looks really big. And the misunderstanding is that his physical form indicates a love of food. He is not an ascetic discipline. He eats so much, he gets so big. Not that. And it's also not a glandular discomfort, right? Distress. What does it symbolize? Maitreya Bodhisattva looking like that symbolizes patience and an ability to hold his temper, they say, under insult, patience under insult. So, okay, hold that thought, that bodhisattva. I know I've got one. I've got another image. I've been describing it. I should show it to you. Old fool, is he here? Here he is. Okay, take a look here. The old fool looks like this. Here he is. Remember this guy, right? He's on altars on what I say on the over the fireplace, mantles. That's the word. Here he is with his money, right? You've seen this one. Every shop in Chinatown sells them. Yeah, like that, right? Big fat guy. So, okay, mind you, that is an artist's representation of a principle of able to endure, patience under insult. What I want to share is there is another Maitreya Bodhisattva who has nothing to do with the fat Buddha, who's not a Buddha, he's a Bodhisattva. He's on his way. He's the next Buddha to be, waiting in the Tushita heaven for us here on earth to get ready to receive him. Not yet. It's going to be a while, right? Anybody who tells you Maitreya has come is reading from a different story. The Buddhist Maitreya is the next Buddha to be, but we're not ready for him to arrive. In the Avatamsaka Sutra, the other Maitreya Bodhisattva looks like this. Here he is. What does he look like? He looks like, whoa, what do you call him? Say he looks like a Western sheriff with a long handlebar mustache, and he's strong, he's tall, he's upright, he's fit. This is what Gandhara Buddhist art, Western, Caucasian, Hellenistic figures. Strong, tall, upright, right? Not looking fat and chubby and cheerful, right? They look distinguished. They look strong. They look, in their prime. This is the Bodhisattva Maitreya of the Avatamsaka Sutra, who is, in fact, the one who ushers Sudana, the pilgrim, into Buddhahood. He is good advisor number 50 out of 52. And that Maitreya is the one who we meet in the Avatamsaka Sutra. So just to say, there are two of them, okay? Now, back to our fat Buddha. Where do we encounter him? We encounter him in, not that, that comes later, sorry. We encounter him in, I put him in a folder. There we go, Spirit of Maitreya. We encounter him in verses like this one. 老拙传那袄，单犯腹中宝，补破荷遮汗，万事随缘了。有人骂老拙，老拙只说好；有人打老拙，老拙自睡倒。剃吹在面上，随他自干了。我也省力气，你也无烦恼。这种波罗蜜，便是妙中宝。若知这消息，何愁到不了 ？Okay, the old fool wears tattered clothes, fills his belly with tasteless food, patches his robes to keep out the cold, and as things come, so they go. His belly's big because he can hold praise so hot and blame so cold, splits his face in a smile so full at the situations he finds laughable. The jewel of patience, it's a pearl so rare. Right? So that's Maitreya Bodhisattva. Somebody scolds the old fool, he simply agrees. Somebody hits the old fool, he smiles and falls down on his knees. Spit in his face, he lets it dry. He's not upset. You save your energy. The jewel of patience, it's a pearl so rare. Now you've heard of this patience Gong Fu, Maitreya wants to share it with you. But if you set this aside and go seeking the Tao, I got to ask you, who's the old fool anyhow? Right? So this is the way the teachings, this is the way Master Hsuan Hua brought us Maitreya Bodhisattva. He's not fat because he's overeats, he can't control himself. He's that big because of his capacity to take abuse and slander and scolding and just say, no worries, that's fine. Doesn't bother me a bit, right? This is real freedom. To be able to endure others' disdain and hatred and not feel that you need to respond, right? So this is real patience. It's the Renewal, the perfection of patience under insult, I think. Okay, interesting, huh? What a concept. It is anger management. This is anger management of the finest kind. The old fool wears tattered clothes, fills his belly with tasteless food, patches his robe to keep out the cold, and as things come, so they go. His belly's big 'cause he can hold praise so hot, blame so cold, splits his face in a smile so full at the situations he finds laughable. The jewel of patience, it's a pearl so rare. Someone scolds the old fool, he simply agrees. Someone hits the old fool, he smiles and falls down on his knees. Spit in his face, he lets it dry. he's not upset. You save your energy. Jewel of patience, it's a pearl so rare. Computer break. His belly's big 'cause he can't hold. Praise so hot, blame so cold. Splits his face in a smile so full at the situations he finds laughable. Now you've heard of his patience gong fu. Maitreya wants to share it with you. If you set this aside and go seeking the Tao, I gotta ask you, who's the old fool? Anyhow. That's the old fool. Maitreya Bodhisattva is to say, it's not that he's not the fat Buddha. He is. That's a definitely iconographic identity. That's his artistic image, which is there to what? To teach a principle. And the principle is how not to get angry under insult, right? But check this out. Here's one more image. This is a frieze, F-R-I-E-Z-E, from Borobudur. This is a wall carving in stone from this massive, wonderful Buddhist stupa in Indonesia. And who is this figure in the center? This is Maitreya. What's he doing? He's greeting Sudana, the pilgrim, who is down here on his knees seeking instruction. There he is. While Maitreya is there to bless him and tell him how to cultivate the Bodhisattva path. He's not a fat Buddha, right? So how interesting. He's has all these identities. Shifu gave us, Master Shenhua gave us a couplet, a duilian, to this duilian is on some of our kitchens, the two sides of the kitchen. So it's, what is it? 开口便笑，笑天下可笑之人，度大能容，容世界难容之事。The beauty of the couplets is they match word for word, part of speech, perfect. And they also tell a story. So, 开口便笑, he opens his mouth, then he laughs, 笑, to laugh at, 天下, worlds, 可笑, laughable 之人, people. His open mouth is perpetually laughing at all the funny people in the world, right? 度大能容, his belly is big and can contain world, hard to contain things. His huge belly can hold all the unendurable events everywhere. Otherwise, he'd explode, right? So there's just too much pain in the world. But if you can, like Maitreya Bodhisattva, if we can look at it and go, yeah, human condition, we're like that, aren't we? Well, that's not the end of the story. There's a big, broad blue sky up there that reminds us that we're whirling through space around a flaming star, and we're turning as we go. 365 days to go around once, and this entire thing is moving at speed through an infinite black cosmos. And I have to be upset that you raised your eyebrow at me, or one of your comments on Facebook slighted me? Let it go. I'm not upset. You save your energy. The jewel of patience, it's a pearl so rare. Alrighty, we have come to the end of our time today. Thank you all for joining. I'd like to invite the monks at the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery to chime in and tell us if there's anything for us to learn about coming up in the calendar. Anybody?
Yes.
Hey,
Dharma Master, Amitofo. I was wondering if
Amitofo,
we go to the Berkeley. Yeah, perfect.
coming up. There it is.
So we do have some events coming up. We have an Amitabha session for 1 week, led by Dharma Master Jingfo and the other monks at the monastery. And so we go from February 27th to March 5th. And I'll be going through our regular schedule, beginning with transmitting the 8 precepts on Saturday, February 27th from 8 to 9 a.m., followed by the rest of the day reciting Amitabha's name in the morning and the afternoon. And then we'll continue from Sunday to Friday from 8:30 to 10 and 2 to 3:30 p.m. So it's nice because it also, you can go about your regular day, but you can kind of more deeply recite Buddha's name for, for this week. Now it's the Lunar New Year, starting out your Lunar New Year with some practice. Our regular Dharma events are still going on that time. So 12:30 to 1, as well as Rebbe Hung Sher's Friday talk. And you'll see all the session text there that Rebbe Hung Sher is in front of us in PDF. And finally, for those who can pretend, even just part of the session, we're happy to kind of offer putting up, we're calling it dedication of merit plaques now. You'll see that if you click the register for plaques here, you'll go to a website, a Google form where you can register 2 people, one rebirth plaque or one long life plaque, or 2 of each, or 2 of one, for this upcoming session. And we just ask that you attend even just one session, if you just, for instance, like in a morning or an afternoon. That way, you could say what makes the most difference is actually our practice, and the monastery and the community help support us in transferring merit to those we care about, especially during this time.
Might add that this form is bilingual.
Yeah, there's.
这个表格也有中文，你可以填。
Yeah. For those who are listening and only are in China, what I found is that you can't use Google Forms. So you can just email us at info@berkeleymonastery.org, and we will set up your pathways for you. So just because I know Google doesn't quite work in China.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. All right. Thank you for that. A lot going on, and the speaking with one of my Christian pastor friends, the Church of Christ in San Francisco, he was saying one of the few only silver linings of the pandemic was how his congregation in San Francisco has come together on Zoom. He said before they would come to church, back in the parking lot, leave, drive away. Now they deliberately broke the congregation up into groups no bigger than 25, so they could see each other on the 1 or 2 screens, and that everybody is waiting to talk with each other, and the conversations are about their kids and their lives and their worries and their hopes and what they want to do, and it's revitalized their church by being able to at least take the time to talk to each other. So our Berkeley Monastery online BBM Online has created this opportunity for folks to cultivate together in a way that they wouldn't come from morning ceremony. Now every morning the monks have to get up because there's couple dozen people waiting for Zalku to start, so it's, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So there we go. Okay, thank you for that. With that thought in mind of the need for the coronavirus, looking for the silver lining in this horrific pandemic, we found one, which is the Medicine Buddha mantra. It's a way that Buddhists can genuinely pay back some of the goodness. It's spiritual medicine How effective is it? Depends on our sincerity and how often we put these sounds into the ether. But certainly, traditionally, Medicine Buddha's mantra is for spiritual healers. This is one of the most powerful and available mantras. It's in Sanskrit. It's got a melody. We do it in Sanskrit. We chant it 3 times and use this as transference. Instead of our may every living being transference that we traditionally do, during the time of the pandemic, we're using this mantra to carry the wishes that you have yourself to heal the world. So let's put our thoughts together and our palms together and recite the mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaidurya Pravarajaya Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Here we go, last time. Asaje, asaje, samudate swaha. All right, I have a bell here. I'm going to make 3 bows to the Buddhas and 3 bows to Master Hua. You're welcome to join me if you care to. Here we go. Let me close that. There we go. Respect to the Venerable Master. I want to ask my volunteers, how many people on the Chinese side?
5 plus about 55.
55 on the Chinese side, and on the YouTube channel, we had probably 100 more than that. And the Vietnamese channel, don't know how many they have there. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. And Happy New Year. You're the Golden Ox. See you all next week. Ami Tofo. Bye-bye, everybody.